Wake up, wake up. Did they hypnotize you? I thought it was meditation. You guys will start to love meditation as you get older, trust me. When you have kids, you're going to need it. So next, we're going to move on to our second Breaking Barriers panel. If you guys thought the first one was good, wait till you see this group that we have lined up. It's a bunch of entrepreneurs and women who hold prominent positions in corporations. Let's start and help me give a warm welcome to Rosemary St. Clair. She's the Vice President and GM of Nike Women's Business. Next, we have Monica Wretzky, excuse me. Vice President of Marketing at Budweiser. Come on, you guys are a little louder than that. You got to thank her for your beer. Next, we have Leslie Osbourne. Former U.S. Women's National Team player, part of the 2007 World Cup team, broadcaster, entrepreneur, ex-teammate of mine, and current teammate of mine, I should add. Next, we have Erin Magee, founder of Magee. For those of you who don't know, Magee is a peerless by girls, for girls brand, and it was actually originated here in New York City in 2007. And finally, we bring out Dr. Celine Gounder. She's practicing an HIV infectious disease specialist, journalist, and filmmaker, and she was one of People's Magazine's 25 Women Changing the World in 2017. Welcome, everyone. Okay, Celine, I want to start with you, because if you're on the People's list, we want to speak to you. So before you actually made that list, you actually held a prominent role in the faculty position at Johns Hopkins University, and you made a difficult decision to leave that post. Why?
So I think, it's an interesting profession, medicine. You are you have a prolonged adolescence in a sense, because you go to school, and you go to school, and you go to some more school. And you don't really finish until you're in your 30s by the time you finish, all of your training and your residency and all of that. And, I think because you're jumping hoops after hoop after hoop, you don't have a chance to really step back and think about necessarily, where is your career headed in a sense. And I had just come back so I finished training, had stayed on faculty at Hopkins, was spending a lot of time working in sub-Saharan Africa at the time. My husband actually lived in South Africa prior to the World Cup there, which was actually great for him because he got to know the country before the 2010 World Cup. And what I started to see was it almost felt like we were mining these populations for what we could use as academics, right? So academic medicine is funded on the basis if you apply for grants to fund your work, and then you publish papers, and then you use that to get more grants, and it's sort of this ongoing cycle, and that's how you support your career. And so it's sort of like we're mining these populations for data to support our grants and our publications, but how were we actually giving back to the very people we were studying? And the more I thought about that and saw this firsthand in my work, it really just ethically was something that I really struggled with. And so eventually did leave just because I just didn't feel like it was a setting that would really allow for me to give back in the way that I wanted to.
And now that you've done that, were the challenges in transitioning into what you would consider your modern role?
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I had multiple transitions, and I think that's the thing that can be challenging, right? Because I was on this track for years and years, and then you have this idea of what your career is going to look like, and then it's sort of like, wow, gosh, this is really not what I thought it was going to be. And then, sometimes you have to try a couple different things to get to where you want to be. So I ended up taking a job here in New York City as an assistant commissioner at the Department of Health, running one of the bureaus, and that wasn't quite the right fit for me either. And so tried a whole lot of different things. Did some started to pivot towards media and journalism around 2012. So that was more of a mix of some television, some writing, some podcasting. And I think what I realized in health and medicine, it's really poorly communicated in the media. And in fact, there's a group up at Harvard that studies journalism and how is it done. And one of their comments was that it's, and I see this myself, is a lot of what you see, and even the New York Times, is highly reliant on a press release. They don't have access to the journal articles I can read. You know, these are all people I'm around all the time. And so the quality of what you get in the 3 bullet points on NBC News or on CNN or what you even hear on NPR is barely scratching the surface. And so I really felt like there was a need to tell more nuanced stories. And you know, it's important because it's not just about your personal decision making. You know, we've heard about the vaccine controversy. There's this young boy, I think Ethan was his name, who testified on the Hill this week about the conflict he's had with his mom about whether he should be vaccinating. So there's obviously the personal decision making, but then there's also the bigger picture policy decision making that occurs. So, you know, you guys might remember during the midterm elections of 2014, there was a lot of debate around Ebola. Should we shut our borders? You know, that has huge impacts on policy and how things are funded. And I just felt there was a need for more responsible health journalism because it really does have an impact.
And how are you doing that? Is it through largely your podcast?
So a lot of television actually around the time of Ebola. I think my frustration with that was that, again, it's you can, because of the time, because of the way it's structured, the format doesn't allow for you to get into a lot of depth. And I think what's been interesting is I've explored different types of media. When you look at, you know, a very short news story on TV, or if you look at how long people read material online, and you know, people can track that, right? So we know around 800 to 1,200 words is sort of the sweet spot for a written article. And again, that doesn't give you much space. And what's interesting about podcasting is at least the data so far shows if people start to listen to a podcast, if they get in for about 2 minutes, they will most of them will listen till the end. Even if it's a 40-minute podcast, once people get started, they'll usually listen. And it's because they're commuting or they're cooking or they're doing laundry at the same time, and they kind of can do different things. And so it just allows you to tell a richer story. So yeah, that's why I really gravitated towards that later.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you. And so getting people's attention and keeping people's attention is something you've mastered and something you know a bit about, Monica. So I guess my question for you, for Budweiser in general, is historically, stereotypically, when we think of beer commercials, it's largely utilized women to entice men to imbibe. You know, have you seen a shift in this approach?
Absolutely, and actually this is perfect timing. For those of you that were not able to see a campaign that we launched yesterday, we actually reimagined some of our advertising from the 1950s and 60s, where women maybe were not portrayed in the most balanced fashion. Definitely a reflection of the times, but we used that as a launch pad to really bring forth a long-term commitment we have in conjunction with See Her, which is a movement that is committed to seeing the accurate portrayal of women in advertising. So yesterday we took our advertisements from the past and reimagined the leading ladies in each of these advertisements to show them in a more balanced fashion, because I think there are many times where people don't even know what that really means. You know, what does balance mean? And for us, it's showing them in a more positive fashion, more empowered. So for us at Budweiser specifically, this has been something that we've been committed to for the last 10 years. But yesterday we really formalized it to make sure that we have a continuous lens on this day in and day out. And just one really big part there is Budweiser, obviously an iconic beer brand, but we're also a leader in the advertising industry. So for us, it was not only responsibility of ours, but it's our duty to the advertising industry to sort of take this conscious step moving forward.
Within the framework of what you do now, and I would say your previous career, they're very different.
Yes.
You were a producer, you wrote music for J-Lo, for Pitbull, you performed.
Yeah.
You know, how did you, I'm noticing it in all of these women up here, their stories are similar in the sense that you guys all have shifts in your careers. You know, what drew you to both of these fields, and how did you even jump from that ship to here?
Yeah, and really random. I also worked at Nike for 2 months. It's interesting, like in hindsight, everything makes sense. I understand what each step that I took did to get me to where I am today, which I would honestly say I'm turning 36 next month. I'm finally sitting in a place where I'm like, I love what I do. I understand my calling, but there was 15 years where I was really not sure where I was going, but I knew that I wanted to get to something I loved. So yeah, I was in the music industry, and I knew that I wanted to touch people in a certain way. And at that point, I was like, the number one thing I love is music. Let me try it through that. But ultimately, I had some shifts. But I was never afraid to commit myself 100% to something, if you call it my flavor of the 5 years. And I would commit myself and have very honest checkpoints with myself and say, okay, am I fulfilled? Is this 100% where I want to be? And to not have the fear to make a change. And for me, it was never failure. It was more always just this journey to get to where I want. But yes, many jobs. There's many that you don't even know. I bartended, I worked at a dentist's office, but I was always in action and in the pursuit of figuring out what I wanted to do.
What makes you know you're in the right spot now?
I think the biggest piece is, of course, I'm proud of the work I'm putting forward, but ultimately, I think it's day in and day out going into work, and waking up before my alarm clock. So I'll set it at 5:30 in the morning, but I will always wake up at 5:29. And I think that is always a signal to me that I'm really excited about what I want to do. And on the flip side, it's like sometimes I will look at the clock and see it's 7 o'clock and be like, put your computer down. And it's because I'm insanely passionate about what I'm doing. And I would add one other thing. I think it's also the people I work with. I feel incredibly empowered and challenged by everybody I work with. I know some of my team members are here as well. And to just continuously get that energy from people, I know that I have landed in a place where I'm with like-minded individuals, and some not. You know, the diversity of thought is very important. But I would say those things collectively are really where I know that I've hit that sweet spot of what I want to do.
Well, Leslie, are you in your sweet spot? You've now shifted from being a professional soccer player, and now you're an entrepreneur. You launched Sweat Cosmetics with 4 of your girlfriends. Are you in your sweet spot?
Yeah, absolutely I'm in my sweet spot. I feel so blessed to have played soccer my whole life, and I think there's a lot of you soccer players out there. I think it's really scary to think about that next step and what are you gonna do after you're done playing a sport, especially when you feel like it's part of your identity, or maybe what other people have made you feel like that's your identity. So for me to play soccer, which I love to do, and for me to transition out of that and find something that I'm so passionate about, absolutely. I love what I do. To give a little bit of background about what Sweat Cosmetics is I am part of a company that 4 of my other teammates, Lindsay Tarpley's another Olympic gold medalist, and my other 3 partners played professional soccer with me. We found a huge gap in the market, and we wanted to create products for women that lived active lifestyles, and for nowadays, everyone's on the go, going from one thing to the next, and we create sun care, sunscreen, and also cosmetics products for the active woman. And now that I'm a mother, I have 2 young babies, I'm the target market. I'm living my dream. I get to work with a company, my former teammates. I'm still part of a team, which I think everyone wants to feel part of a team. And we're doing something, you know, that's really challenging. We walk into a boardroom, or we try to raise some money, we walk into a room of all men. You know, that's challenging. But you know what? Being an athlete at the highest level has helped prepare me for those moments. So yeah, I think I am in my sweet spot, and I feel so blessed to have so many cool and amazing role models that help prepare me for this opportunity, and also my network to give me the confidence to go after this, because it is scary to be female-founded and run and to be in a very tough industry.
Why do you think that? Why is it intimidating to walk into a room with all men?
Yeah, you know, it can be very intimidating because we went straight from being athletes to being entrepreneurs, and there's a learning curve there. But soccer gave me more skills and traits than anything in my life has ever given me. So Do you think I was scared playing in a World Cup, semifinal or final? Absolutely. But those moments help prepare me for that, and the skill set of the dedication and passion and commitment and competitiveness, that all gives us confidence to be able to walk into a room, to have that confidence and know that we are confident and we can do anything. And being part of a team still allows me to feel that way. So I think that, having the sport background, athletic background, has helped prepared us for this moment, because I do think that we could have folded, walking into rooms and not having that experience that a lot of people in our industry do have from going to an athlete, to an entrepreneur. It can be scary, but you know what? They don't have what we have. And since we performed at the highest level and we have achieved the highest success possible, that gives us to be able to, open our shoulders and feel really good about what we're doing and go after our dreams.
What would you say then to these young women who perhaps are going to go and play collegiately, or they're going to transition just from college into a job? What can they do right now to make that transition easier and prepare themselves?
I think that's like the best question you can ask, and the fact that we're asking and talking about it now is the first step, because I know in college we didn't have that. No one was talking to us, playing college soccer about, well, what are you going to do after college? You're so in the moment. You're going after your dream. You're putting in so much work. You've got one goal in mind, to be the best player, to win, or to go get a national championship. Then no one's really talking about it. And then you have players that get hurt. And for me, a blessing in disguise is I tore my ACL after making the 2008 Olympic team. And I had to take a couple steps back and go, no, one out of 10 doctors said I would be able to play soccer again, okay? So at that moment, I had an opportunity to figure out, what am I passionate about? What else do I want to do? And that's when I got into working for nonprofits. That's when I did my first TV gig. That's when I started thinking about going to business school, is when that moment happens when you're like, what's next? So for in college, I would love to start a program in college athletics and also in the professional leagues. No one's talking about in the NWSL, in the MLS, what are you going to do after soccer? Because that is your identity. You don't even know what you're good at that point. I used to see resumes come in at Santa Clara University where athletes didn't even put on the header Division I athlete. For so many companies want to hire athletes like you that have skill sets that not a lot of people out there have. They're teachable. Some people can teach them, but you don't understand the platform that you have. So I would, 3 things. 1, take your platform and extend your network. Get to know people. The power of your network is probably, I think, in my opinion, the biggest thing you can have. Build relationships and network. Second of all, try new things. Find out what you're passionate about. A lot of players go and coach. That's great. But what if you don't want to coach? Or what if that's not your calling? So find out what else you're passionate about. Do a couple different things. And 3, start preparing. It's okay to think about, well, what am I going to do post? That doesn't mean that you're done. That doesn't mean you're not fully committed. That just means that you're actually smarter and thinking ahead of time. So when that moment does come, and when I did retire from professional soccer, my transition was very easy, because I watched people that went through some really dark times, and I watched people like Allie transition very positively and go after and continue to break barriers. So use your platform and start now thinking about what's post.
Awesome.
Wow.
Your work here is done.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is that true,
I want to
Erin?
do like 20 push-ups. I'm like, yeah.
You got your shoes on. You can do it.
That was really
I'm
good.
waiting for it.
Wait, now I have to talk?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes, you do. Ed made me. You had the vision for it. Would you be interested in hiring athletes first? But I'm
hiring her.
Yeah, all right.
Oh
Is she gonna run everything?
Yeah, cool.
I
don't know if I can afford you, but it's there. So I'm taking a bit of your advice, and I'm going to say I, too, was a Division I soccer player, which I never talk about. So cool. Thanks.
Wow. That's great.
And I actually transitioned from playing soccer and accidentally fell into fashion, similar to like what you're describing. When I was graduating, I had no idea what I was going to do. In college, you're kind of in this weird place where like tomorrow seems like 10 years down the road. So you're like, who cares,
And I played Division I soccer at Hofstra University, and I wasn't as good as these two, but I was okay. And the head of Umbro, which was a sportswear brand at the time, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that name, but
Do they still exist? That's all that matters.
But did it? I think, yeah. Okay, so the head of Umbro and his family would come and watch my games, and I would sign their autographs after the game and stuff like that. And then and the father, who was the head of Umbro, he said, "What are you doing when you graduate?" And I was like, "I have no idea. I have this like European trip booked with my sister to like backpack across Europe because that was like cool then." And yeah, okay, still cool. And he was like, "Do you want to be my assistant?" And I was like, "Sure. I like really have nothing else going on, so totally." And he was like, "Okay, cool. Our headquarters is in Manchester, so when you're backpacking with your sister, hit up Manchester, and we'll have you do your first onboarding for your first job." And I was like, "All right, great. My first business trip to Europe." Like I was like, "I made it." So I did that, and I kind of like fell into fashion through sport. So and kind of totally accidentally, but I always liked fashion. But since I was actually playing basketball too at Hofstra, so I was a two-sport athlete, and I was so hyper-focused on sports and academics because I was like this crazy overachiever. I didn't have like a chance to really think about what my interests were, like you were touching on. But I was really interested in all these like subcultures and fashion and weird music, and I was really into like Riot Girl and Delight, and I was a huge Madonna fan, and like, but I never really understood that the connection between those things was fashion. And so working at Umbro, my boss was more interested in kind of like high-level business things, but I was interested in like what were the cool things I could get my hands into. So I don't know if you guys know Kim Jones, but he's the head at Dior, and he used to be the head at Louis Vuitton. But Kim Jones was doing a collaboration with Umbro at the time, and my boss didn't want to have anything to do with it. It sounded like a disease to him. Like, Kim Jones, what is this weird fashion stuff? And he let me manage it, and I was really, really into it. And then this brand called Supreme called the phone one day, and I just happened to pick up the phone. And I picked up the phone, and I was like, "Hi," and he was like, "Hi, I'm calling from Supreme. I've been calling Umbro like nonstop for months, dying to do a soccer jersey collaboration." Again, sport, like playing into my life. And I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let me talk to my boss and see if he's down." You know, I was like 23 and like willing to do anything. So I talked to my boss, and I said, "There's this really cool new brand called Supreme, and they want to work with us. And trust me, this is a really good thing." And he was like, "I don't want to hear about it. Just you handle it and like get off my back." So I was like, "Great." And I went down to Soho and worked with Supreme and worked on 2 seasons of Umbro Supreme soccer jersey collaborations. And then the owner of Supreme said, "I really like you. You're a really hard worker. Do you want to work here?" And I was like, "Well, I guess." and he was like, "How much do you make?" And I was like, $40,000 a year. And he was like, "How's 45?" I was like, "Sold."
But you were really making 30, right?
Yeah.
I hope you upsold
I was really
yourself,
making 30,
right?
guys.
Yeah.
So I took the job, and you know, that opened like so many more doors to me. You know, I got to help build one of the most successful and important and relevant fashion brands in the world. And out of that, I started my own brand called Made Me, which is a young women's contemporary fashion brand. And I started Made Me kind of out of this feeling that, you know, at Supreme, it's a very male-focused, male-driven, male-identified, we make men's clothes, that's what we do, brand. And I always felt like, even though I was really signed up for that, it wasn't truthfully me all the time, you know? Like, there was this whole other side of things that I wanted to get into, and there was all these other girls that I knew that I wanted to support, other artists, you know, musicians, young designers, that at the time, Supreme and no fault to Supreme, it just wasn't supporting that because it was a men's brand. That's just what the focus was, you know? And so I thought, there's this whole other side of me that wanted to do the same kind of thing for women. So I started Made Me as this little side art project that turned into a cool business, and yeah.
Okay, you're making that sound way too easy.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to believe that you just fell
Don't
into that.
undersell yourself, guys, like me.
Yes.
On a stage.
Please just give us one nugget on some of the challenges that you faced to get into that spot, because I doubt that you just moved up with an Umbro and then you just barely were wanted by Supreme.
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, I always told myself, and I tell every young person I hire the exact same thing, because I always told myself, you may not be as talented as the person next to you. I wasn't as talented as a soccer player as you guys, but I could wake up earlier than you guys, and I could stay later than you guys, and I could try harder than you guys. And I always told myself that no matter what job I was in, if I was at Umbro or I was playing soccer or I was at Supreme or with Made Me, there's going to be people that are more talented than you. There's going to be people where things come easier to them than it does to you, but you can always put in more effort than the next person, and that's kind of, it worked for me. It just worked for me. I always woke up earlier than the next person. I did my emails before I even went to work so that I could, when I got to work, I could focus on building my team and building strategy, you know, so yeah.
It's fantastic. And Rosemary, I know that you probably have that same work ethic and drive at Nike. My biggest question for you is that Nike's always been at the forefront, I think, in pushing women's sport, if you will. But there's always been a perception that it doesn't sell in the marketplace as much. And how has your company been able to balance, if you will, that financial reality that's been there, and knowing that you also do craft the narrative for women and women in sport going forward?
Sure. Well, first, welcome to Nike. The office is like this every day.
Yeah.
I've never seen this space built like this, but welcome. Glad you guys are here. We just feel like there's just tremendous momentum right now around women's sport. And we want to inspire and invest in the next generation, because we all know we are better when sport is involved in our lives. And that's sport however we deem to define it. So it can be, you know, traditional soccer sports, it can be traditional team sports like soccer, it could be yoga, it can be anything, but we know we're better with that. I think for our brand, we are committed to using it as a catalyst to be able to tell that story and let young girls be seen what it means to them to be in sport. So if you've seen the latest, you know, launched a couple weeks ago, our latest ad around Dream Crazier, so those crazy dreams, but just when we're out talking to young consumers, their ask is show us like what it could be. And so I think that is the best representation of showing the next generation of what it means to be in sport, and dream crazy, because people are going to tell you can't do something, or you gotta believe in your dream and get there.
And as an organization or corporation, you have to think about the profit factor. And getting to this point now, there's a ton of momentum, but again, you guys were always the ones kind of pushing women into, I think, the marketing place, if you will, utilizing women role models. Why has that always been, I think, has it always been, I guess, a focus for Nike, and who's pushing that?
Well, we will grow the sport market for sure. And there's plenty of growth out there. When Nike gets behind something, we can grow. We know we can grow an entire market around that. And I think the investment that we're making in grassroots, that stuff, of course, it pays off. But what I'm most passionate about is, I don't know if you know the stats, but most 12-year-old girls drop out of sport by age 12. It's not a good experience for them, and they don't want to play anymore, and they don't want to participate. And so our investments in grassroots efforts, where we're helping to train and train coaches on how to coach, and providing mentorship to female coaches so that they can create a positive experience for girls to continue to play sport, because we want them to stay in sport. Sport is important and it's powerful for them, and you guys all know what it means to be on a team. And just listening to we all gained experiences from playing team sports. I didn't play soccer, by the way. I just want to be clear.
We forgive you.
I tried it once. It's exhausting. Anyway.
I'm sure running a company's not.
But we know the power of playing on a team and what it means to be part of a team and what experiences you gain from that. We want to make sure that that is happening for the next generation. And we have a responsibility in that at Nike. But we all have a responsibility in that with the media and with everyone that's involved in sport. I think when you see the joy that happens on the field or the pitch or the court or the track for female athletes or women that play sports or young girls that are playing, you just can't contain that. That is a contagious, infectious joy that spreads, and we want to make sure that that more girls have that experience. It's important.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we're going to open it up for questions in the room. If anyone has one, if you don't, I have more, so I'm going to be generous. Go ahead. We don't need a mic. You're close, right?
My name's Lucy.
Oh, maybe you do, so they can hear you in the back. I apologize. Yell, Lucy.
It's on its way. It's on its way.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So my name's Lucy. I have a huge passion for sports and getting into the industry, and I've recently thought about maybe starting my own kind of company or business within that. Leslie or Erin, what's kind of like or anyone really, but like piece of advice to like make that step? Obviously, I'm also fresh out of college, so I obviously need to like gain some experience as well. But that first step, like, do you have any advice on like how to make that step or that, the next point?
Go for it. Okay, I'll start. First of all, good for you. The fact that you already have that is yeah, amazing. My best advice would say, take your time. When we came up with this idea while we were playing, it took us 3 years before we actually launched. So when people see us, we're in Sephora, we're in Anthropologie, we're on Revolve, we're everywhere. People look at us like, oh my God, how did you guys just blow up? And we're like, this is going back to like 2011, 12, right? Where we came up with the idea. And then it's like, okay, you've got the idea, now prove it. Doing the data, doing the research. Then it's like, okay, finding the chemist. We found our chemist through Twitter, which is so ironic, but cool, right? So I talk about the power of your network. It goes back to that. So take your time. For us, we felt like we had one shot at it, right? Like these athletes starting their own company. So we had to make sure we had everything dialed in. So take your time. Make sure you bring on people to your team that make up for your weaknesses. Because not everybody can be part of a company with 3, 4, 5 people. And truly, it's hard at times. But at the same time, we complement each other. And what my weaknesses are, my partner can make up for that and vice versa. But I would, at the end of the day, make sure you bring on people to help you, use your network, and take your time. Because once you do go live, there ain't no turning back. And once you have investors and friends and family and people invested in your company, they believe in you, but they're also pushing you and watching you go succeed. So just take your time.
I would say, I'm not sure if you know what kind of industry or company you're interested in.
Yeah, I want to leverage sports among girls, like you said, to like help not just girls but also boys to like find their passion and then give them the tools and resources to get recruited if that's the path they want to take. Just because I came from a really small town and my parents had no idea what recruiting is, so just having that knowledge would help those kids out.
I would say look at a company that already exists similar to what you want to do and either study that company or go get a job at that company. That's basically what I did. I got a job at Supreme and learned I would never know how to start my own clothing company if I hadn't worked there, you know, so and really pay attention to all aspects of the business when it's almost like a paid internship, but don't take it as like kids how they take their internships where they're just like going out for lunch and stuff. Really pay attention, you know, you're getting paid and pay attention, you know, and really take everything you learn. And you know what else you can do is you can see when you're in the whatever company you get the job at and just see, I would do that better, or this is something I would want to improve, and then implement that when you start your own business. But it's also it's the dark reality that you need money. you're gonna need money, you know. And it's like, I remember I sold my Mini Cooper for $20,000, and that's how I started my company. I sold my car and I took the train everywhere. So you're gonna need some money, and it sounds like there's different ways to get it. But you also have to think about that. I mean, you can raise money, or you can use your own money. Yeah.
You're going to need money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're going to need.
Yeah.
And time. Awesome, thank you. Anyone in the back?
Hi, my name's Francesca. I was just wondering, you guys have all been in very busy positions and high up positions, and I feel like a lot of what stops women from being able to do that is having a family or maintaining relationships and all of that stuff. So how have you guys managed to maintain close relationships with your family, have a work-life balance? Because I feel like that can be difficult as you progress in your career.
Good question.
Oh, we should ask Allie since she's
No, I'm not a panelist. I don't know the answer. Go ahead, please.
I think it's a myth that there's actually balance. We can talk it out. It's just sometimes it's not balanced, and sometimes you're all in on your job, and sometimes you let things happen at work because you need to be there for your kids. So I'm married 35 years. I have 3 adult children. It was unbalanced, and I think as a woman, I can only speak on behalf of women. I don't know how it is for men, but you're doing everything you need to do at work. You are loading the dishwasher. You're making sure your kids are at their practices when they need to be there. I had good support on my side, but I think it's just some days are just crazy, and at the end of the day, you don't know how you got through it. But I'm not sure that a work-life balance is always in play. I'm not sure it's always balanced.
Yeah, what I would add to that is, I'm not going to use a really finessed word, but I think life is lumpy, and you have to take it at bits and pieces of time, right? So everybody's priorities shift over time, and I guess my one advice to you is just make sure that you're doing at least 2 things passionately at any given interval, but also understand that everything changes, everything is dynamic, and ultimately, it is really up to you to set your boundaries and your limitations. If you want to, make sure that you are becoming the best at whatever sport it is that you're pursuing, that's a priority for you, right? So you're going to have to set limitations and boundaries in other areas of your life. But the biggest headline here is it's lumpy, and it's in your hands to set your boundaries.
I think for me, I have 2 young babies, 1 and 2 years old. So I'm in the thick of it, I guess you would say, major baby mode right now. And sometimes it's really scary. I work with Allie for Fox Sports, and I do studio, and I used to think about, I think I texted you the other day saying, what did we do when we didn't have kids? You used to have all this day, the whole day to study and analyze and prep, and that's
so enjoy it.
Yeah.
All of you, I'm looking at each and every one of you.
It's not the case anymore, but what I do realize is I'm probably much better at my jobs now that I do have kids, because first of all, I know how to multitask better than I ever have before, and I'm just way more efficient. And I just do my job better, and I'm a better mom because I do other things for me. That's really important. So when I am with my babies, it's the best. But I'm also just really efficient with what I do. And it also gives me confidence that I am doing a lot of things to be able to do my job better. So it's a work in progress for me. I'm still figuring out what works for me and my family. And I have an amazing husband and system that help me do what I do. But I also think that I'm still working on it, and I'm still figuring it out. And when my girls, maybe next one, go to school, I'm going to have a lot more time again. And it's going to just go through different phases. So right now, I think what you both said, this is my current state of life, and I'm doing what I can, and I'm trying to just kick butt doing it.
Agreed. I have a 1.5-year-old at home. And I used to be able to spend a lot of time, more time, I think, kind of getting involved in cultural activities, going to shows or seeing, my friends DJ or going to a fashion show or something. And a lot of creativity comes out of that, but I can't do those things anymore, very much. I used to, every night there was something that I had to go check out or do. And now with Goldie, my daughter, you know, I actually want to be with her. I don't want to be at my friend's fashion show. And I'm finding a shift about that, where I'm spending, you know, a lot of time at the office and then a lot of time at home. And it's just being able to get that inspiration and that culture from other places now, you know? And that's my newest challenge. So it's like, how can I feel like I'm still connected to this downtown fashion community now that I'm an old lady with a kid, you know? So, you know, thank God there's Instagram, you know, and there's other ways, and I read a little bit more when the baby goes to sleep and stuff. So that's my current challenge. But I'd much prefer like taking a bath with Goldie at night than like, you know, like going to a show or something. So I like the trade-off.
I think of work-life balance as something that you try to do over the scope of a lifetime, not day to day. You know, I can tell you, like when I was in residency, working over 100 hours a week, doing 36-hour shifts, there's no way you can fit anything else in, you know, barely saying hello to my husband, you know, over a meal. So I think it's a question of figuring out, okay, this is the period I'm doing this. This is the period I'm going to focus on this in my life. And I think the other myth that's out there, and this is for men and women, that you can have it all. I think once you let go of that, and you just focus on, this is what I'm really passionate about, this is what I'm going to prioritize. You know, for example, my husband and I have made a very conscious decision not to have kids. My two sisters are having kids, and I'm so happy to be their aunt, and Grant loves, you know, his nieces. But we also understand what our bandwidth is and what was doable and what we could do well. And you know, I think everybody's going to choose a little differently. So don't feel bad about that. You know, whether it's maybe not having kids, maybe not going for the promotion at work because you want to have a little bit more time. Just do what's right for you.
And last question is actually going to come from me, sorry. No one's success occurs on an island. And I want to know what your community looks like and how it's actually impacted your career. Go ahead, please, okay. Rosemary.
I like lean in, but I love lean on. So I have a community of people that I lean on. And I've heard several times about the importance of networking. But people like to share what their experiences have been and what their learnings have been. So I like to lean on a community of people, men and women, asking them, getting advice from them, and just expanding that as a broad base of mentorship.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately for me, I can't look at any time where I've hit a life milestone and I could say it was done entirely by me. I think little by little you'll realize that you need people and team and supporters to get anything done and to make any sort of movement. So for me, I lean on people every single day within my team, within my company. Even in a professional setting, I'll use the example of yesterday's campaign. Yes, we could have put those campaigns together, that campaign together on our own, but we needed to lean on the See Her organization to make sure we were doing it in the right way. And then also outside of our industry, I have many mentors, and it's awkward. Sometimes you'll have this moment where you'll see someone and you'll have a really good conversation, and you've just got to be like, hey, I don't know if I'm ever going to see you again. This has been an awesome chat, but do you mind if I just, you know, get your email address and maybe like we can have a mentorship relationship? People are so afraid to ask that. And I know when people ask me that, I'm like, that's awesome. You were so bold to ask me that. Yeah, let's talk to each other, you know, once every couple of months. So I think it's important for you, to have people within your system, your friends, family, peers, but also it's great to get that perspective of people that you don't typically ever, you know, cross paths with.
I think it's really cool looking back, just when I was younger and seeing how many of my mentors and role models came from when I was a kid, when I was in school, when I was playing club soccer and multiple sports, and then going to college, and every different phase in my life, playing collegiately and then professionally for 10 years, teammates, coaches, teachers, You know, when I started the business, there's a venture capitalist that's a mentor now in my business world. So I just feel like it's evolving, and sometimes you don't even know that someone's going to be a mentor to you or a leader to you, but they will. And it's so cool for me to even like go back to my high school coach, who I'm extremely close to, who helps me just with like life stuff, right? And you just never know when someone's going to truly play a role in your life. But it's also, you know, we talk about this community. I just love this family aspect. And I think that, you know, yesterday was Women's International Day, and I think that part of that is actually like supporting each other. And I love being part of a group like this, and I love playing soccer and sports that, you know, we can always go back and talk to each other because we have that foundation. Soccer is our foundation. And as you get older, you are going to lean on people more or in a different way than you did before. And that's like the fun part of the journey. And I think also the most natural thing to networking is just being natural about it and truly meeting someone because you want to meet a new person and hear their perspective. And it's crazy what that relationship could turn into for you.
I think for me, with Made Me, I try and create a community around it. I think for young women getting into fashion, it's very scary. You'd think fashion would be a welcoming place for a woman. It seems like it would, right? Like, you know, all the big fashion houses you see, their biggest moments, their biggest shows are their women's lines, you know. But the reality of that business is most of the heads of those houses are men. And most of the designers behind those women's brands are men. And it's a funny industry that uses women's buying power but doesn't support women. And so what I've tried to create with Made Me, and not I haven't done it in this like kind of contrived kind of way where I'm like, oh, I'm going to create this company and only hire women. I naturally want to hire women because I don't think they have an equal seat at the table in fashion. Even though they're just as educated and just as talented and, you know, great graphic designers, they just do not have an equal seat at the table. So at Made Me, most of the people that I've hired are women. I have 2 really great designers. My whole sales team is women. You know, my business manager is a woman, and I really try and create this female community for young, like-minded women.
So I hate the expression networking. I don't like that expression at all because to me it feels very transactional. I think you should be trying to build community and approach people with curiosity and generosity, not, you know, what are you going to give me? But just, you're a really cool person, and we would love to, wouldn't you love to share experiences together? And I think just to echo, I think it was Monica who was talking about meeting people outside of your sphere. I mean, I could so easily hang out with only doctors, and I actually find that super boring. And I do have like every 3 months my doctor lady friends dinner with my, friends in town who are physicians, and that's nice to catch up with them. But I mean, to give you an example, I just got back from a 2-day retreat with 8 other professional women. We didn't know each other before. And some of the most interesting conversations, like there's one woman who just started her own law firm, another woman who's the CEO of a software tech company, and the kinds of things that you learn from people completely outside of your field. And you can help each other in ways, and it's not a transactional help, it's more of a sharing experiences and learning how to think about things differently. How a doctor thinks about things is different from how a journalist thinks about things, which is different from how Rosemary would think about things. So I think the more you can cross industries also in your community, the stronger you'll be.
I lied. I have one more quick one, but it's quick because I know you have a flight to catch, and you only get one sentence each of you. We're trying to create leaders here. You guys are leaders in your industry. If the people that work for you or work with you could describe you in one sentence, what would you hope they would say about you? Oh. You get to go first, and you can leave. No, I'm just kidding.
One sentence. A supportive fixer. 2 words,
Actionable.
not even a
That's
sentence.
Good. That's
but
all right.
Okay.
We're improvising.
I would say an inspiring leader.
Okay, that's good.
Hardworking and passionate.
Nice. Those were good ones, guys. Jeez, I'm stumped.
One sentence.
I would say hardworking and multifaceted.
I'd say multidisciplinary change maker.
You guys heard it. Say thank you to this fantastic panel. Absolute pleasure. Yes, you guys. You have the leaders of industry, all incredibly unique paths, but they are hopefully imparting to you guys tools that you're going to take going forward. They are going to exit. You guys are going to move to your breakout sessions with your confidence, community, and career. This time, the purple is going to correspond with confidence, and that is going to be in the back of the room. Green is going to correspond with community, which will be upstairs. And finally, the pink will be the career, and that will be in the front of the room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Nice to meet you, Rosemary. Safe journeys.